Because your salary at the company is so low, the food in the fridge is mine alone. My wife Tatum snapped, slamming the refrigerator door so hard the whole thing rattled against the kitchen wall. I just stood there frozen in place, a half-eaten container of her expensive imported cheese still in my hand. Let me back up a second. I teach high school history in Baltimore, and some days are brutal. That Tuesday had been one of them back-to-back classes grading papers during lunch and coaching the debate team after school. By the time I got home around 7, I hadn't eaten since a quick coffee that morning. My stomach was screaming. The house was quiet. Tatum wasn't back yet from her open house. She's a real estate agent, and when the market's hot, she pulls in big commissions. I opened the fridge looking for anything quick. Her side was packed fancy prosciutto artisanal cheeses, those little glass jars of olives, and truffle pâté she orders online. My side, pretty bare. A couple of leftover chicken breasts and some wilted greens. I knew the rules. We'd been keeping separate groceries for months because, according to her, my paycheck couldn't justify the premium stuff she liked. But I was starving, and there was this small wedge of that creamy French brie she'd bragged about costing $40 a pound. I told myself I'd just take a couple slices and replace it tomorrow. No big deal. I cut a few pieces, spread them on crackers, and was halfway through when I heard her key in the front door. She walked straight into the kitchen, dropped her bag on the counter, and went for a bottle of water. Then she saw the open container on the island. Her eyes locked on it, then flicked to me. "What did you do?" she asked, voice low. "I was hungry. I'll pay you back for it." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. She marched over, snatched the cheese away, and shoved it back into the fridge. "You'll pay me back. With what, Ian?" "Your teacher salary." She slammed the door closed. "Because your pay is so low, the food in this fridge is mine alone. Understand?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. I just stared at her, stunned. We'd argued about money before, but this felt different. This was cold. Possessive. That night, she barely spoke to me. The next morning, while I was upstairs getting ready for work, I heard drilling downstairs. When I came down for coffee there, it was a heavy padlock drilled right through the fridge door, sealing everything inside. She'd left a note taped next to it. "Don't touch what isn't yours." I stood there staring at that lock, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't just about cheese anymore. If you're already hooked and want to know how I turn the tables and why Tatum ended up crying for days, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay until the end. You won't believe what happened next. Things had been building for months until that Tuesday evening. We live in a quiet suburb just outside Baltimore, nice two-story house, white picket fence, the kind of place where everyone waves when they drive by. Tatum and I bought it 5 years ago when we got married. We always split the big bills right down the middle: mortgage, utilities, property taxes, car payments. That part never changed. My salary as a high school history teacher is steady around $65,000 after taxes, but it doesn't swing wildly. Tatum's income as a real estate agent is different. When the market is hot, her commissions can hit 6 figures in a single quarter. When it cools, she still clears more than me most years. At first, the difference didn't matter. We celebrated her big closings with nice dinners out. But about 18 months ago, things started shifting. She landed a string of high-end listings in the waterfront neighborhoods, and the money rolled in fast. Suddenly, our grocery habits became a problem. One night after a particularly big sale, she came home with bags full of premium stuff: grass-fed steaks, imported olive oils, those tiny jars of saffron that cost more than my lunch for a week. I made a joke about how we were eating like millionaires. She didn't laugh. "You know," she said, unpacking, "since I'm bringing in the bigger checks these days, maybe I should handle the better groceries. You can stick to the basics." I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. Within a couple weeks, she declared separate food budgets. Her side of the fridge filled with organic produce, aged cheeses, prosciutto from Italy, bottles of wine I couldn't pronounce. My side had budget chicken store brand yogurt, whatever was on sale at Giant. She even started labeling her containers with a Sharpie Tatum do not touch. I tried to roll with it. I like simple food anyway. But the comments started slipping in. When I'd grab a beer after a long day grading essays, she'd glance over and say, "Careful with those calories on your budget." If I mentioned wanting to try one of her fancy salads, she'd smile tightly and reply, "Maybe when you close a seven-figure listing, Ian." It wasn't every day, but it was often enough. At dinner parties with her real estate friends, she'd laugh and tell stories about how my teacher paycheck kept the lights on while her commissions paid for the vacations. Everyone chuckled like it was cute. I smiled along. Then came the receipt audits. She'd go through the grocery app questioning why I spent $12 on a decent bottle of barbecue sauce when the store brand was half the price. "We're trying to save for a bigger house," remember she'd say. But the bigger house talks always centered on her next big deal. I started cooking more at school just to avoid the tension at home. Packed lunches, microwave meals in the faculty lounge, anything to not open that fridge and feel like a guest in my own kitchen. The worst moments were quiet ones. Like when I'd come home exhausted from parent-teacher conferences and find her eating sushi she'd had delivered, scrolling listings on her phone. She'd look up and ask what's for dinner as if my frozen pizza somehow offended her. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Markets fluctuate. She'd calm down once things evened out. But the digs about my salary became background noise. "Public servants are noble," she'd say with that edge in her voice, "but nobility doesn't pay for truffle oil." I never fought back hard. I didn't want to be the guy who resented his wife's success. But inside, it wore me down. Every labeled container, every side-eye at the checkout total, every casual reminder that my contribution was cute, chipped away. By the time that Tuesday rolled around, the fridge wasn't just divided, it felt like a border wall. That Tuesday had wiped me out completely. I'd spent the whole day breaking up arguments in senior history class, then stayed late helping kids prep for finals. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was past 7 and I was running on fumes. Tatum's car wasn't there yet. She'd texted earlier about a late showing in the city. I dropped my bag by the door and headed straight for the kitchen. My stomach growled loud enough to echo. I opened the fridge without thinking twice. Her shelves were loaded, a thick ribeye she'd picked up for herself, fresh asparagus, some gourmet sauce in a glass bottle. My side held leftovers from last week that didn't look appealing. I stared at that ribeye. It was huge, easily enough for two. I figured I'd cook half, save the rest for her, and Venmo her $20 in the morning. Fair enough. I seasoned it quick, fired up the stovetop grill pan, and threw on the asparagus too. The smell filled the house as it seared. I was plating it when I heard the garage door open. Tatum walked in, heels, clicking, phone still in hand from a call. She stopped dead when she saw the steak on the counter and the empty wrapper in the trash. "Ian, tell me you didn't." "I was starving." "I'll replace it tomorrow, promise." She set her phone down slowly, eyes narrowing. Replace it. That was a dry-aged ribeye from the butcher in Fells Point. $45 a pound. "You think your allowance covers that? It's one meal. We can split the cost." "No." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "We've talked about this. My commissions buy the premium stuff. Your salary buys the basics. You cross the line." I put my fork down. "Tatum, come on. It's food in our house." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened the fridge, scanned her shelves, then closed the door harder than necessary. "You don't get to decide what's fair anymore. I bring in the real money here." The words hit like a slap. I felt heat rise in my face. "I pay half the mortgage. Half everything that keeps this roof over us. Half of the minimum," she shot back. "My closings pay the extras, the vacations, the upgrades, the food that actually tastes good." "You want steak, earn it." I stood there, plate cooling in front of me. She grabbed a yogurt from her side, some fancy Greek brand, and ate it, standing up, watching me like I was a stranger who'd wandered in. You're really going to make this a thing over one steak. It's not about the steak. It's about respect. You don't touch what I paid for with my money. She rinsed her spoon, set it in the sink, and walked past me toward the stairs. Sleep on the couch if you want. I'm done talking. I ate alone at the island, the meat tasting like nothing. The house felt colder than usual. I cleaned up, went upstairs, and lay awake listening to her scroll on her phone in the dark. I must have dozed off eventually. When I woke up around 6, the bed beside me was empty. I heard noises downstairs, drawers opening, something metallic clanking. I threw on clothes and headed down. Tatum was in the kitchen in her blazer coffee in one hand, power drill in the other. She'd already drilled 2 holes clean through the fridge door and side panel. A heavy steel hasp was screwed in place, and she was sliding a thick padlock through it. "What the hell are you doing?" She clicked the lock shut, tested it, then turned to face me. "Securing what's mine. You proved last night you can't be trusted. You drilled into our refrigerator. Over a steak. Over boundaries you ignored." She slipped the key onto a chain around her neck. "The fridge is mine now. You need something from it, ask nicely. I'll decide." I stepped closer, voice shaking. "This is insane. I pay for half this house. That appliance is joint property." She picked up her bag, checked her watch. "Joint property doesn't mean you get free access to my earnings. Deal with it." She taped a small note next to the lock. "My food, my rules." Then she walked out the door without another word. I stood in the kitchen staring at that padlock gleaming under the lights, the drill still warm on the counter. Something inside me went very quiet. The next morning, before she left for her open house, I drove to school that morning on autopilot, the padlock still burned into my mind. Classes dragged. Kids argued about essays. I nodded through meetings. But underneath it all, my anger cooled into something sharper: resolve. Arguing wouldn't fix this. Begging would make it worse. Tatum thought she'd won, thought that lock gave her total control. She'd forgotten one thing: she only locked the fridge. She didn't lock my money. I have a separate business account from freelance curriculum work I do on the side, stuff Tatum calls my hobby, money. She never asks about the balance because it's never been big enough to interest her. Until now. During lunch break, I sat in my classroom with the door closed and opened the high-end butcher's website on my phone. The one downtown that supplies restaurants. I scrolled past the usual cuts and went straight for the prime ribeyes, thick, heavily marbled, dry-aged 28 days. 2 of them, £2 each. Price tag eye-watering. More than she spent on her premium groceries in a week. I added them to the cart. Next, fresh black truffles from Oregon, half a pound shaved, would be plenty. A bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, the reserve label she'd once said was wasteful. European butter artisanal sourdough from a bakery in DC, heirloom tomatoes, wild mushrooms, a wedge of real Parmigiano Reggiano, lump crab meat, clarified butter, fresh herbs. The total made me pause for half a second. Then I hit checkout, selected same-day priority delivery before 6 p.m. and paid with the card linked to my account. She thought she controlled the food supply. Fine. I'd create my own. The rest of the school day blurred. I picked up charcoal and wood chips on the way home. Our backyard grill hadn't been used in months. The weather was perfect, cool Maryland evening, clear sky. I got home around 4. The fridge sat there in the kitchen like a fortress lock gleaming. I didn't even glance at it. I carried everything out back instead. Our deck overlooks a small yard with mature trees, typical Baltimore suburb privacy. I cleaned the grill thoroughly, lit the charcoal, let it heat slow. Set up a side table with cutting boards, knives, bowls, arranged the wine to breathe. My phone buzzed with texts from Tatum running late. Big clients don't wait dinner. Perfect. I seasoned the ribeyes generously, coarse salt, cracked pepper, a little garlic powder. Let them sit at room temperature. Sliced the sourdough thick, brushed it with the European butter mixed with minced garlic and parsley. When the coals were ready, I seared the steaks hard 4 minutes aside for that crust, then moved them to indirect heat. Added hickory chips for smoke. The smell started drifting rich beef wood garlic. I shaved truffle paper thin over a bowl, tossed the wild mushrooms and butter on the grill side burner. Toasted the bread until golden. Gently folded the crab meat with lemon zest and a touch of the clarified butter. The steaks hit medium rare perfectly. I pulled them off to rest tented loosely. Sliced one open, juicy, rosy center. I plated everything on our good dishes. We barely use massive ribeye, sliced thick mushrooms, piled high crab, on the side truffle shavings scattered like black snow grilled bread tomatoes, drizzled with aged balsamic I'd forgotten we had in the pantry. I poured a generous glass of the Cabernet, let it open up. The backyard filled with the kind of aroma that makes neighbors peek over fences. I ate at the outdoor table slowly, deliberately. Every bite tasted like freedom. The meat melted, the truffle exploded on the tongue. The wine was velvet. I wasn't rushing, I wasn't hiding. Leftovers plenty. I wrapped them carefully in foil, stored them in a cooler with ice packs from the freezer, the one part she hadn't locked. By the time I finished cleaning the grill and bringing plates inside, the sun was dipping low. The house still smelled incredible. I felt calm for the first time in months. Around 6, I heard her car in the driveway. I'd moved everything inside. By then the plates, cleared leftovers in the cooler, wine bottle half empty on the dining table we rarely use. The windows were open, evening air carrying the last traces of smoke from the grill. Tatum walked in heels, echoing talking on speakerphone about a contract. She ended the call as the door closed, then froze in the entryway. Her eyes went straight to the table, the massive sliced ribeye arranged on the platter, truffle shavings, glistening crab meat in a crystal bowl, the open Cabernet breathing beside 2 glasses I'd set out. She dropped her bag. It hit the floor with a thud. What? What is all this dinner? I said, sitting calmly at the head of the table. Have a seat. She didn't move. Her gaze darted from the food to the empty delivery packaging I'd left visible on the counter, then to me. Ian, where did this come from? This isn't from the fridge. No, it's not. Her face shifted, confusion first, then dawning suspicion. She stepped closer, peering at the labels on the bottles, the butcher paper still folded nearby. This ribeye is prime. That wine, that's the reserve I looked at last month. Over $300. The truffles. She trailed off, voice tightening. How did you pay for this? I took a slow sip from my glass. My account. Your teacher account. There's no way. I set the glass down. Not that one. The other one. She blinked. What other one? The investment account my grandparents left me. The one I've been adding to with curriculum consulting and stock trades over the years. You never asked about it because it was small at first. It isn't small anymore. Her mouth opened, closed. Color drained from her cheeks. How much enough? I leaned back. Enough that your commissions aren't the only real money in this house anymore. She gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. You've been hiding money all this time. I wasn't hiding. You just never cared to look. Called it hobby money, remember? Her breathing quickened. Eyes flicked back to the table, to the luxuries spread out like evidence. This is insane. You spent... How much did this cost? More than your dry-aged ribeye. Less than one of your closing bonuses last quarter. She let out a sharp laugh that cracked halfway. You think this proves something? Throwing money at food because I locked the fridge. I'm not proving anything. I'm eating what I want, paid for with what I earned. Same rules you set. Her face twisted. The composure she wore like armor slipped. This isn't the same. I earn the premium because I bring in the premium. And I've been sitting on 6 figures I never touched because I didn't want to rock the boat. Boat's rocked now. She stared at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. 6 figures. You're lying. Check the statements if you want. They're in my office drawer. A sound escaped her half-gasp, half-sob. She pressed a hand to her mouth, turned away, then spun back. All these years you let me think. You let me say those things about your salary. You said them. I didn't stop you. Tears welled up fast. She swiped at them angrily. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked. You decided what my contribution was worth, and ran with it. She sank into the chair opposite me, voice breaking. This changes everything. The house, the savings. It changes nothing I haven't already decided. She looked up sharply, mascara starting to run. What does that mean? I didn't answer right away. Just poured her a glass of the Cabernet and slid it across. She stared at it, then at me, tears spilling now. Ian, please. We can fix this. Her voice rose on the last word, cracking into a scream that echoed through the house. How could you do this to me? I stayed silent, watching her unravel. Not even an hour later, Lorraine's car pulled up. Tatum had disappeared upstairs right after her outburst, phone pressed to her ear, voice muffled but urgent. I heard fragments. He's been hiding money and you need to come now. I stayed downstairs, opened my phone's voice recorder app, and set it face down on the coffee table. The front door flew open without a knock. Lorraine marched in, purse-swinging face already set in battle mode. She's in her early 60s, lives 20 minutes away, and has never hidden her opinion that her daughter married beneath her. Where is he? She demanded. Tatum hurried down the stairs, eyes red, makeup smudged. In the living room. Lorraine spotted me immediately. She strode over Tatum, trailing behind. So you're the one pulling stunts now, Lorraine started, voice sharp. Tatum tells me you've been secretly hoarding money while letting her carry this family. I didn't stand up. Evening, Lorraine. Don't evening me. She's been killing herself closing deals, paying for everything that matters, and you've been sitting on a nest egg. That's deception. Tatum nodded vigorously. He admitted it himself. 6 figures, Mom. All this time he let me think we were tight on cash. Lorraine crossed her arms. In my day, that's grounds for fraud in a marriage. You think you can blindside her now? I kept my tone even. No one's blindsided. The account was always mine, inherited, grown separately. Community money is still community. Community, Lorraine scoffed. You contribute the bare minimum while she brings in the real income. Now you wave some secret fund around to humiliate her? Tatum jumped in, voice rising again. Exactly. He spent a fortune on one meal just to throw it in my face. Lorraine turned to her daughter, protective arm around her shoulders. Don't worry, honey. We'll get a lawyer first thing tomorrow. A good one. We'll make sure every penny of that hidden money goes into the pot, and we'll take the house. The car's everything. Judges don't like secrets. I stayed seated, hands relaxed on my knees. The recorder was catching every word. You're threatening divorce over groceries, I asked quietly. Over lies, Lorraine snapped. Over you undermining my daughter's hard work. She's the breadwinner here. You're just the teacher who got lucky with some inheritance. Tatum wiped fresh tears. I can't believe you'd do this to us, Ian. After everything I've done. Lorraine tightened her grip. He's shown his true colors. We'll file first, get temporary orders. Freeze accounts. You won't get away with this. I looked at Tatum directly. You want to escalate to lawyers? She hesitated for a second, then straightened under her mother's arm. If that's what it takes to protect what's mine. Lorraine nodded approvingly. That's right. We know people. Top family attorneys in Baltimore. They eat cases like yours for breakfast. The two of them stood there, united voices overlapping with plans, alimony, asset division, even painting me as financially abusive for withholding funds. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. Just listened, letting the recorder run. Lorraine paced now, gesturing sharply. You think you're clever pulling this power play. We'll see how clever you are when the judge hears how you've been deceiving her for years. Tatum added, I trusted you. We were supposed to be partners. Partners don't lock fridges, I said softly. That set Lorraine off again. Don't you dare turn this around. She had every right to protect her earnings from someone who can't keep up. They went back and forth, threats piling higher, taking the house since her income paid the bigger share of upgrades, claiming emotional distress, dragging it out until I'd spend everything on legal fees. I checked the time. Nearly 10. The recorder had plenty. Finally, Lorraine grabbed her purse. Come on, Tatum. You're staying at my place tonight. We'll start making calls in the morning. Tatum nodded, grabbing an overnight bag she'd apparently packed upstairs. She shot me one last tearful glare. This isn't over. They left together, door slamming behind them. The house went silent. I stopped the recording, saved it with a date stamp, and emailed a copy to myself. While they were still downstairs arguing the night before, I quietly made my plans. I slept on the couch that night, no point going upstairs. The house felt empty anyway. I woke early before sunrise and started moving. First thing, research. I sat at my desk with coffee and opened my laptop. Searched for top family law attorneys in Baltimore ones, specializing in divorce asset division and financial disclosure cases. I read reviews, checked ratings on Avo and the Maryland bar site, narrowed it to 3 firms with experience in high conflict separations. By 7, I emailed the one with the best track record, a woman named Elena Reyes, whose clients praised her for handling hidden assets and controlling behavior claims. I attached a brief summary, marriage length, income disparity, recent escalation involving property damage and threats. Requested an urgent consultation. She replied within minutes, slot open at 10 that morning. I showered, dressed, and headed to the kitchen. The fridge still had that lock hanging off it like a badge. I took out my phone and photographed everything, close-ups of the drilled holes, the hasp and padlock, the note she'd left days earlier. Wide shots showing it was our shared appliance. Then I scrolled through old texts, months of messages where she mocked my paycheck, called it cute money, or said her commissions were the only ones that counted. Screenshot everyone. Saved them in a dated folder. Backup complete, cloud and external drive. Next, finances. We have a joint checking for bills and a savings account she mostly funds with big deposits. I logged in from my phone. Maryland law allows access to joint funds, but I kept it reasonable. Transferred half the checking balance and half the savings to my personal account, the one she'd never bothered with. Left enough for upcoming mortgage and utilities. Documented the transfers with screenshots and notes on amounts. Petty maybe. Necessary absolutely. I wasn't letting threats freeze everything while they lawyered up. Last step before leaving the fridge itself. I found a small screwdriver in the junk drawer, removed the padlock carefully. No damage beyond what she'd already done. Opened the door. Her side was stocked packages of prosciutto cheeses, those expensive yogurts, bottles of white wine. My side nearly empty. I unplugged the unit from the wall. The compressor stopped with a soft click. Opened both doors wide to speed things along. Freezer too. Everything inside would thaw and spoil by evening, safely, gradually. I left a new note on the counter, fridge unplugged for repairs. Food will need to be replaced. Locked the house behind me and drove downtown. The consultation with Elena went better than expected. I showed her the photos, texts, recording from the night before. Maryland is a 2-party consent state for in-home, but since it was my house and open area, she said it was admissible gray, but useful for context. Explained the transfers fully legal in joint accounts. She nodded through it all. This pattern of financial control and property vandalism strengthens your position. We can file first, request exclusive use of the home pending division. I signed the retainer. Papers would be drafted that week. By afternoon, I was back home. The kitchen already smelled faintly off milk turning meat warming. I left it. Phone buzzed with texts from Tatum, demands to talk, accusations of theft for the transfers, threats of restraining orders. I forwarded them straight to Elena. The power had shifted completely. I wasn't reacting anymore. A few months down the line, the papers were signed. The process moved faster than I expected. Elena filed promptly, citing irreconcilable differences with supporting evidence of controlling behavior and property damage. Discovery phase uncovered Tatum's texts and the recorded threats from that night with Lorraine. The judge in Baltimore County didn't look kindly on the pattern financial belittlement over years, combined with the drilled lock as physical proof of control. Maryland divides assets equitably, not automatically 50-50. My steady income, the separate inheritance I'd grown responsibly, and the clear documentation tipped the scale. I kept the house primary residence in my name longer, and her actions made joint occupancy untenable. She received a cash settlement smaller than she'd demanded, mostly from her own commission savings. The joint account split closer to contributions, meaning she walked away with less than she'd counted on. No alimony. The judge noted both parties were self-supporting professionals. Tatum fought hard at first motions, depositions, attempts to paint me as the secretive one. Lorraine showed up to every hearing, sitting behind her daughter, whispering strategy. But the evidence spoke louder than their narrative. One afternoon in late fall, I came home from school to find a moving truck in the driveway. Tatum was directing movers, loading boxes into it, her clothes, decor she'd chosen, kitchen items she claimed as hers. She didn't look at me when I walked past. Lorraine stood on the porch, arms crossed, glaring until the end. By evening, the house was mine alone, echoing quiet, but mine. I repainted the kitchen, first fresh coat over the drill holes in the fridge door. Replaced the appliance entirely with a basic model, no labels needed. Stocked both sides evenly. Cooked whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. Weekends became my own. I grilled in the backyard again, invited colleagues over for beers, took a woodworking class downtown. Traveled solo to places we'd talked about but never booked, because her schedule always came first. Tatum moved back in with Lorraine from what mutual acquaintances mentioned. The real estate market cooled that season. Her commissions dried up. She switched firms, started over in a smaller territory. I ran into her once at a grocery store in the city, pure chance. She was pushing a cart with basics, Lorraine beside her picking produce. Our eyes met across the aisle. She looked away first. No words exchanged. No need. Looking back, the fridge was never really about food. It was about power, who decides worth, who sets rules based on bank balances. Tatum believed higher earnings gave her higher authority. She mocked mine to keep me small, controlled access to remind me daily. It backfired completely. Belittling your partner over money doesn't make you stronger, it erodes everything. Controlling shared resources to punish perceived weakness only exposes your own insecurity. Marriage can't survive one-sided scorekeeping. Real partnership demands respect and equality, especially with finances. When one person weaponizes income to dominate, the relationship rots from the inside, just like food left too long behind a locked door. I'm better now. Independent. Content. The house feels lighter. And every time I open the new fridge, I remember no one gets to decide my value based on a paycheck.